So today's video is going to be another solved true crime case. Today we're going to be talking about the case of Maleha and Nabiha Masud. Quickly before I get into this, I just want to give my usual disclaimer that I mean absolutely no disrespect to anyone that I talk about in this video. This is all just information that I have found on the internet and I'm compiling into one video. So Maleha and Nabiha Masud were 15 and 21-year-old sisters from South London in England. And the two of them also had a further two siblings, two brothers named Junaid and Zain, who were 17 and 24 at the time. Their mother's name was Rabina Masud. She was 55 years old at the time, and their father, whose name I couldn't actually find, passed away 2 years prior to the incident when Maleha was 13 and Nabiha was 19. I believe all of the four siblings and the mother Rabina still lived together in the same house in South London, and they were all very strict Muslim. And because they were so strict in their faith, 15-year-old Maleha never actually told any of her family that she had a secret on-again, off-again boyfriend. In 2009, when Maleha was 14 years old, she met also 14-year-old Akmal Mia when she was just out with friends. And the two of them ended up getting together in the spring, and they were together for a few months before splitting up. Since Maleha was the youngest in the family, she was the youngest sibling, all of her older siblings and pretty much everyone in the Masud family really kind of like babied her, protected her, looked after her. Her older brother Zain was quoted saying, "Everyone treated her like a little baby. She was a very bubbly character and very popular." Nabiha Masud was 21 years old, like I said, and she was actually engaged and planning her wedding for October of 2009. Her brother Zain also described Nabiha as very quiet, very homely, and her fiancé loved her very much. Then on June 21st, 2009 at 4:30 in the morning, a fire broke out at the Masud house. Everyone in the Masud family was asleep at the time in their separate bedrooms, but luckily a woman passing by in her car saw the fire break out. This woman was called Carmen Peterkin, and she was out driving with her daughter at the time, and immediately she saw the smoke coming from the house and began screaming to wake the family up. And she also called 999. The Masud family did all wake up and they were screaming to each other and frantically trying to get out of this house where the fire was spreading really quickly at this point. The fire began downstairs and the whole of the downstairs was on fire, and so the only way that they could really get out of the house was to jump out of their upstairs bedroom windows. The first of the family to escape the fire was 24-year-old Zain, who was the oldest of the Masud siblings, and he managed to jump outside of his upstairs window. He's been quoted saying, "I instinctively went to go and get my brother and sisters, but when I got out of my room, the smoke was too thick and hot. I couldn't go into the hallway. I opened the windows, looked down, and just jumped out." The next person to escape the house was the mother, 55-year-old Rabina, who also managed to jump out of her window. Due to the panicked screaming coming from the house and coming from Carmen Peterkin, who discovered the fire, several different neighbours had woken up and come out of the house to see what was going on. When they realised that the three youngest members of the family were still inside the house, neighbours tried to smash the windows, hit the door down, but none of it worked. They did eventually manage to break in through the back from the kitchen door. However, the smoke was just way too thick and hot at this point and no one could go in without protective gear on. Eventually, firefighters arrived at the house and managed to get ladders up to the bedroom and things, so no one had to go inside the house because it was just way too dangerous for anyone. All three people remaining in the house, Maleha, Nabiha and Junaid, were all recovered but with varying degrees of injury. Junaid and Nabiha were sent straight to the hospital and put straight into a specialised burn victim unit to be treated, whereas Maleha had actually already stopped breathing when firefighters found her curled up at the bottom of her bunk bed. She was brought outside where a policeman managed to resuscitate her, so she was breathing again, her heart was beating again, but she was still in very critical condition. Maleha suffered severe carbon monoxide poisoning and brain damage, and she had to be put onto life support. For 3 days while Maleha was on life support, they tried to reverse the effects of her brain damage, they tried to help her carbon monoxide poisoning, but ultimately nothing could be done. And so on June 24th, 2009, Maleha Masud's life support machine was turned off. Almost a month later, on July 20th, her brother Zain, who was the first to escape from the house, was discharged from hospital where he was being treated for really severe burns. He was mostly healed, although he did still have a lot of burning to his hands, his arms, his face, and some damage to his lungs. 5 days later, however, a month and a day after the passing of Maleha Masud, Nabiha Masud also passed away after a really hard struggle with her injuries. She was severely burned, poisoned by the fumes of the fire, later developed respiratory diseases, and she eventually died of cardiac failure and other major organ failure. And finally, in August of 2009, the last of the Masud family was safely discharged from hospital. 18-year-old Junaid suffered severe burns and damage to his lungs, but survived. However, he will have to wear protective gloves for the rest of his life because the skin on his hands is just damaged beyond repair. So the mother, Rabina, and both brothers, Zain and Junaid, were fine. However, Maleha and Nabiha had sadly passed from this fire. The day after the fire, friends and family of the Masuds all gathered around outside their house, along with reporters and just people from the news trying to figure out what had gone on. And this included 15-year-old Maleha's secret ex-boyfriend, 14-year-old Akmal Mia, who she'd actually split up with just a few days before the fire. He was very visibly distressed. He was sobbing the whole time. He was telling reporters how much he loved her, how amazing she was, sending them pictures to use in their reports. So police quickly realised that this fire was not accidental. It was made intentionally by someone because it started by the front door of the Masud house, and there were no kind of electricals, nothing that could have caused a fire there. There were, however, traces of petrol on the floor in front of the front door of the Masud home. And if you don't know, petrol is a very flammable substance. And it's usually used when people try to set something on fire, which led police to think that maybe this was murder and attempted murder. And so a bunch of people were brought in for questioning. Akmal Mia, a bunch of friends of all the different members of the family, Nabiha's fiance, not as suspects, just to kind of get an idea of the family, if they had any enemies, if anyone might want to do this to them. In 14-year-old Akmal Mia's questioning, he was still very distressed. He was repeating things like, "I love her so much, I can't believe she's dead." He was crying the whole time. But in Maleha's friends' questionings, they said that Maleha and Akmal they never really got on. They were constantly arguing. Akmal was controlling with Maleha at times, and they didn't think that he really liked her that much as he was portraying. Like I said, they were very on again, off again, and they had a very short relationship. It was only around 3 months long, and they split up and got back together several times in that 3-month span, and they were constantly arguing, and so her friends just found this really strange. But since Maleha's family were very strict Muslim and they didn't want her to have a boyfriend at that age, she kept Akmal a secret from the family, and Akmal used to use this against her. Every time Maleha threatened to split up with him after they'd had another argument, he would blackmail her, saying that if you split up with me, I'm going to tell your whole family about our relationship. And she was so scared about what her family might think, what they might do, that she stayed with him every time. Well, she wouldn't stay with him, she'd split up with him, and then he would use that as blackmail to get her to come back to him, and that's how he'd get her back every time. They did split up several times. When police heard about Maleha's friends' take of Maleha and Akmal's relationship, they thought it would be important to seize Akmal's phone records from the time of their relationship, and when they did, they found that Akmal had a borderline obsession with Maleha. Obviously, there is a very fine line between a kind of loving obsession, where you're so in love with someone that you're like obsessed with them, and a kind of unhealthy, dangerous, obsessive relationship, very one-sided. So I'm not going to sit here and say Akmal was obsessed with her, because that is a very subjective thing. You might hear the evidence and think, well, that's just a normal relationship, or you might hear the evidence and go, that is very obsessive. So I'm gonna let you guys decide whether you think this was a very obsessive relationship or not. In the 87 days before Maleha's death, Akmal had texted and called Maleha 1,679 times, which as a number like that, it sounds a lot, and that does sound obsessive. However, over a space of 87 days, that's almost 3 months. For a 14-year-old couple, that's not that many, I don't think, because when you're young, you constantly want to be talking to your boyfriend or your girlfriend, and over a space of 3 months, okay, so I've just worked it out, and that's literally 20 texts a day, which I don't think is that much. If it was like a two-sided conversation, they were like going backwards and forwards 20 times is not a large amount, I don't think. And you've got to think as well, like I said, they were young, they wanted to be talking to each other all the time. So I don't know, I'll let you guys think what you think about 20 texts a day for 3 months. Do you think it's obsessive or is it normal? One of them said, "I don't want to share you with anyone else. I want you all to myself. You are my dream girl. I'm not letting you go. I need a girl like you. I need your hand. You, I can see having my baby." On June 17th, 2009, just 3 days before the fire at the Masud house, Maleha broke up with Akmal for the final time. That same night, Akmal acted on his threats to Maleha to expose their relationship to Maleha's family, and so he called the Masud's home phone and spoke to Rabina, Maleha's mother. When Rabina answered the phone, Akmal said, "She's finished with me. She has loads of friends. Take the phone off her." He also said, "You know, when Maleha was studying, she was talking to me. When she was using the computer, she was talking to me." 2 days later, on June 19th, the night before the fire, Akmal called Maleha's phone, threatening her once again. He was saying that he would fuck her family up and said to watch what I'm going to do. And so Maleha was terrified. Now he was literally giving physical threats, and so she took the phone to her mother. She was in tears and she just confessed everything to her, because up until now she'd been denying her relationship with Akmal, and she just took the phone to her mum, broke down and confessed everything. So Rabina, Maleha's mother, took the phone from her and spoke to Akmal on the phone, who was just constantly saying "I love her" over and over again, to which Rabina said such things were not done in their religion, and she hung up the phone. So when police found out about this, the calls and the threats that Akmal was making to the Masud family, this was obviously very suspicious, and so they seized his laptop. And what they found on Akmal's laptop was the most incriminating part of this whole thing. The first thing they noticed when they opened Akmal's laptop was that his background, his screensaver on his laptop, was a picture of the burnt down Masud home. They also checked Akmal's Google search history, and they found that the night before the fire, Akmal Googled the phrase "how to burn someone's house down." And it was also found in Akmal's phone records way before now, before he was a suspect, that on the night of the fire he'd called his 21-year-old cousin Shahabuddin Chowdhury and another boy, 19-year-old Rasal Khan. So all 3 of the boys were arrested on suspicion of 2 counts of murder and 3 counts of attempted murder. All 3 boys denied every single charge that was given to them. Akmal's home was searched now that he was a suspect, and police actually found empty cans of petrol in Akmal's bedroom. And so it's theorised that the boys poured petrol through the letterbox of the Masud home and lit it on fire. And this was also backed up when a local corner shop owner came forward to say that he felt he had some really valuable information in this case. The shop owner said that on the night of the fire, 2 young boys came into the shop fitting the description of Akmal and Shahabuddin and bought a box of matches. And coincidentally, a local house set on fire just hours after the boys were in the shop. And so the shop owner put 2 and 2 together and thought maybe those were the murderers. And this was enough to take all 3 boys to trial, because even though 2 of them had come into the shop, it might have been all 3 of them that set the house on fire. Maybe the other boy was out getting the petrol while the other 2 were getting the box of matches. And so all 3 of them were put on trial for 2 counts of murder and 3 counts of attempted murder. 19-year-old Rasal Khan was found not guilty of all of his charges, and he was let free, because the only reason that he was really there was because he was on Akmal's phone records, and it just looked very suspicious, and he could have done it, but he didn't. In Akmal Mia's trial, he tried to put all of the blame on his cousin Shahabuddin. He tried to say that all of this was him. It was his idea. It was him that poured the petrol. It was him that lit the flame. However, it was Akmal that Googled how to burn someone's house down. It was Akmal who set the photo of the burnt down house as his lock screen. And so the jury just wasn't having any of it. No one believed Akmal Mia when he said that it was all his cousin. And so both of the boys were found guilty of their charges. And so both boys, Akmal Mia and Shahabuddin Chowdhury, were both sentenced to life in prison. Mia with a minimum of 23 years, and Chowdhury with a minimum of 21. But yeah, that's it for this case. I do just want to apologise if I've pronounced any names wrong throughout this video. I feel like I did an okay job, but Shia Boudin is the longest name I think I've ever seen, so if I pronounced that wrong at all, I'm sorry. Yeah, thinking about it seriously, I definitely do think I've just pronounced that wrong for the whole video, so I'm so sorry about that. But yeah, thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed this video, make sure you leave a big thumbs up and subscribe down below if you want to see some more from me. I also just want to let you know, in case you didn't know, I set up a second channel. So I know I'm very kind of serious in these true crime videos. You don't get to see my personality all that much, and so on the second channel you get to see it a lot. It doesn't have a theme. Like, my second channel is literally just whatever I feel like making at the time. I will make it and I will put it on the second channel. So yeah, in case you want to see my weird side, feel free to go and subscribe to that. It's called Eleanor Neale 2. It'll be on the end screen in a second. But yeah, thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed this video. Let me know any other cases you might want me to cover. But yeah, thank you so much for watching. I've already said that. Leave a like, subscribe, I've already said that. It's so warm in this room, I'm going a bit crazy. So I'm gonna go. Bye.